Welcome to the Marketing Strategies Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Byram. Today, my guest is Henrique Cruz, the Head of Growth at Rose. Rose is a mix between a spreadsheet and a database, and it connects hundreds of different third-party tools so you can combine and analyse your data in one place. As a company, they've been flying, and I'm super excited to learn about the marketing strategies that they've used to achieve this growth. So, without further ado, thanks for joining me today, Henrique.
Thank you so much for having me, Matt. Really excited to talk to you today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. And, first off, please tell us a little bit about Rose in your own words.
Yeah, a bit like you said, we're really a modern spreadsheet, right? What we see in the industry is that most of the software tools that we use are quite modern, but the spreadsheet is one of the last ones that is maybe 30, 40 years old, or if you're using Google Sheets, might be 20 years old. And we think that a lot of things have changed in the last 20 years, the explosion of SaaS tools, right? Post-iPhone era, where a lot of our work is between mobile and desktop. Mm-hmm. And so we built, of course, now with the AI transformation as well, we built a spreadsheet for the new generation. We'd say the spreadsheet for the Notion generation or the Slack generation. So it is 100% a spreadsheet. You can use your VLOOKUPs, your index, your matches, all of that. But it also connects to your tools. Like you said, you can pull data directly from Facebook ads or Stripe or BigQuery directly into the spreadsheet. There's a big AI component to help you talk with your data and analyze it with you, an AI analyst. And then a much more modern sharing experience so that if you want to share your spreadsheet with someone, it's by default a beautiful dashboard. It renders well on mobile. You can even embed pieces of it and take a chart and put it into Notion and things like that. And so that's kind of what we're building, a new take on spreadsheets. Because we don't think they're going anywhere.
That's true. That's certainly true. And do you find more people use Rose connected to other tools, or use Rose as a spreadsheet with the inbuilt tools that you have?
Yeah, it's interesting. I would say that, let's say 70% of our power users, so people that use Rose 3 days or more, use at least one integration. So maybe they connect to a marketing tool or OpenAI or HTTP requests, more custom things. But more and more, we're seeing people using it day to day as a regular spreadsheet for calculations, lists, and things like that. And a lot of it was in January, we released a Chrome extension called Rose X that basically allows you to scrape data from the web and in one click put it into a spreadsheet. And that catalyzed a bit these regular use cases of, I have a list of leads on my LinkedIn Sales Navigator, I want to put it into a spreadsheet. Or I have a list of YouTube results, put it into a spreadsheet. And so we're seeing more and more of that.
So I guess that's just making it seamless and easy to get data into Rose in the first place.
Exactly.
Yeah. And what have been your big achievements recently? What have been your big milestones, big achievements at Rose?
Our story has been that it took us 5 years to get to 50,000 users. That was last year. And then we hit an inflection point last year when we released our AI analyst. So this kind of AI agent on top of the spreadsheets. And then the big experiment of removing the homepage. So if you go to rose.com on your desktop, there's no homepage. You land directly in the product. You can start using it. And that basically was the catapult from going from 50,000 to 100,000 to now 900,000 in less than a year. So I think that was kind of the big success story of the last 12 months, was kind of hitting that inflection point in user acquisition.
Wow. Yeah, that certainly is. 50,000 to 900,000, certainly a big inflection point, like you say. Yeah. Obviously, I'd like to dive straight into that. You say about Instant Rose. Obviously, in the Marketing Strategies podcast, our aim is to talk about your top 3 marketing strategies. Obviously, we've talked before, and you mentioned that your number 1 marketing strategy is word of mouth. But I know, from talking to you before this, that you're not just talking about word of mouth that people normally talking to each other, but you're actually talking about making Rose so seamless and easy to use as a starting point that people have such a unique experience. You call that Instant Rose, and I'd love you to tell the listeners a little bit more about how that works.
Yeah, of course. Happy to. So Instant Rose is really what the name says. Go to rose.com on desktop. You don't see a marketing page. You go directly into the product. If we take a step back and think, why did we do this in the first place? Everybody already has a spreadsheet, right? They might use Google Sheets, they might use Excel. And even though the product is not really free, it's part of your license, it's almost as if it's free, right? It comes with your email address. And so we're essentially competing with a market that already knows the product, the base product very well. People know what a spreadsheet looks like, and they already have a spreadsheet. And so our thinking was, okay, if we really want to be the easiest way for people to get data into a spreadsheet, analyze it, and use it, and if everybody already understands at a basic level the concept of a spreadsheet, can we live without a homepage and just getting people directly into the product? And so that's what we built. Right? It's an experience that you can fully experience the product just by going into rose.com. You can connect integrations, build dashboards, and then there's a few gateways to get you to sign up. Right? And that really was the big driver of this sustained transformation, because we went from converting about 9% of people from website visitors to signups on desktop to more than 20, 25, 26%. And so we basically tripled conversion rate to sign up just by doing this. And I think the thesis is more people are experiencing the product. They already knew at the basic level how a spreadsheet works. So our job is to show you the value proposition of what makes us special faster. People do this, they build their first dashboard, it looks good, they sign up, they keep using the product. So that was really transformative. And that's what Instant Rows is.
And that's what's really taken you from 50,000 signups through to 900,000 signups in the last year.
Yeah, there was two things. One of them, I think it's the second tactic. We get a lot of word of mouth through social, but like compounding over time and sustain, it has been Instant Rows. Yeah.
Yeah. And was there much that you had to do to change how the spreadsheet page worked or looked for onboarding new users, to get new users to instantly understand, what Rows does and how it works and how it might be different to your normal spreadsheet?
Yeah. The biggest part of the work has been iterating on the onboarding experience, so the empty state, let's say, because removing the homepage itself is relatively straightforward. It's just we create a dummy workspace and a dummy username, and the product is the same. So that was relatively straightforward. But then the challenge is, okay, you land on a spreadsheet. What do we need to tell you about it so that you understand what makes us special and so on? The first version that we had, you actually landed on the spreadsheet, and we only had a few pointers, say, here's how you import data, here's how you create a new table. And then we got a lot of people telling us, hey, I was expecting a homepage. Where is your homepage? Or where is your pricing? Or what is the difference between Rows and Google Sheets? And so we iterated through the onboarding, and now you land. There's a side panel at the right hand, which is kind of the 3 value propositions of Rows. And then it lands you on a panel with a first action to get started. Like, do you want to import a file? Do you want to connect Facebook ads? Or are you not sure where to start? And then we point to the homepage and to an onboarding call and so on. So.
Yeah. And how did that affect your SEO? Taking away the homepage is obviously usually the highest traffic page on most websites. So I'm just interested to understand how that affected your SEO. And a sub question there, was that a concern when you're actually planning to do this, that you might actually be dive bombing your website in any particular way?
Yeah, the two concerns were, obviously, we will have more people trying the product, but what will happen to conversion rate to sign up and activation? And the second thing is what will happen to traffic in general, because now the page takes longer to load, there's no content to be indexed, etc. And what we saw is, of course, much higher conversion rate, etc. I already talked about it. But on the SEO front, what happened was just on Rows.com, so direct traffic, we 6x the number of clicks. Okay, so big. And then on the average position, just Rows.com, the average position on the web went from 25 to 7 now. So big improvements in SEO. And I'm not 100% sure on why that is the case. My hypothesis is that the new Instant Rows just increases time spent on page a lot and reduces bounce rate a lot, because people just are directly in the product.
Yeah.
And the second thing is it really increased backlinks and word of mouth. So a lot of people are talking about this experiment. A lot of people are directing traffic to Rows. And I think these two things helped. I was a bit surprised of how much better it got, honestly. I don't have a very crisp explanation. Those are my two hypotheses.
Yeah. Did what you rank for changed at all? I noticed, I did a bit of research before we talked, and I noticed that Rows is searched for an awful lot, which comes down to the word of mouth portion of this. I think you got 60 in Ahrefs. It says 63,000 searches a month. Obviously, that's if people are searching for your brand, they're going to find your homepage and find your website. But were you ranking for other things like spreadsheets and things like that? Is it harder to rank for those things when you're coming straight into an app rather than the?
There's a bit of a conflating effect, because we went viral with the analysts a little bit at the same time as we released Instant Rows. And so we do get a lot of direct traffic. It's hard to attribute to which one. On the other keywords, what we see is a lot of AI related traffic. So we have a lot of traffic to AI spreadsheets, AI tools, and that they either go to rose.com or rose.com/AI.
Right.
Now we're building out, let's say, content capabilities on other surface areas of the product, because historically in the last year, there's been a lot of direct traffic to Rose or Rose AI.
Yeah. Well, it's a fantastic story. It's a really nice experience. And as you say, a lot of people have been talking about it as well. For the listeners on this tactic, to implement an app as your landing page so people can log straight in, well, not even log in, just a seamless starting point for using an app. Is there any tips or, help that you might be able to give to the listeners who might be thinking of implementing something similar?
Yeah. While writing about this experience, I think we discovered what we're calling the login-less formula, which is thinking, does an experience like this make sense for you as a product or not? And what we came down to is, if your product has a very large audience, potential audience, that can get value from the product on their own, so they don't need a lot of additional context or pre-work or help to get started. If your business model is some sort of a freemium or free trial model where you're okay in losing a few people, because you will obviously lose some people just by landing on the product. So if your business model is okay and you don't need to monetize everyone, and your product has a good single player mode experience, then I think it's worth considering this login-less experience. Right? Yeah. People can get value on their own. They don't need to invite people first. They don't need a lot of pre-context. You have a large audience and you don't need to monetize everyone. So I would give it a try. And then the second thing I think, which is a tip, is this is really a two-way door, right? If at the end of the day this doesn't work, you just redirect people to the homepage again. We still have the homepage at rose.com/product. If this hadn't worked, if this works or doesn't work, you'll know it really fast, because all of a sudden you expose 10 times more people to your product. Yeah. So it's easy to get back if it doesn't work.
Yeah, that's true. You can flip it back to be in the homepage. Yeah.
Or you can. We didn't A/B test, but you could also A/B test. There are a lot of ways of de-risking if you want to give it a try.
Yeah, fantastic. So second best marketing strategy for you is social. Something particular that you mentioned here is that you launched the AI Analyst, and you got 30 million impressions on social media in the first 48 hours and 100,000 signups in the first couple of weeks. I'd love you to talk a little bit more about how you did this.
We've been building this spreadsheet for 6 years. Okay, so this is the first note. And over these 6 years, what we say is there's been multiple waves of market changes. There was a lot about no code maybe 5 or 6 years ago. There was a big crypto wave maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and we kind of missed those waves. We never really had the right product for this right time. But with AI, I think we jumped the gun a bit, and we worked on a feature that made a lot of sense on the intersection of AI and the spreadsheet. So that was the first thing. Do we have something that in this current exploding market makes sense? And then I think that's the hardest part. Right now, obviously, AI is the big exploding market. So do you have a working product or a working hypothesis on why adding AI will make your overall product better? And then in terms of distribution, what we did was we were starting to see, I think this is less relevant now, but a year ago, we were starting to see AI influencers on Twitter, people making lists and sharing AI tools, etc. And so what we did is we produced a video that told the story of how to use AI with Rose. And then we did a partnership with only 2 or 3 of these AI influencers, I think 2 on Twitter, 1 or 2 on LinkedIn. And we gave them a media kit. Look, we're launching this in this day. This is what you can share. Here's the video. Here's 3 or 4 images. Here's the messaging that we're going with. And that just catapulted shares and over reshares. Right? So that's the part that's out of our control. Right? We did this with 3 or 4 people. It went really viral. Other people started sharing it. And then we had the effect of, for most of these influencers, their post about Rose was their most popular post ever. So they had an incentive to keep sharing. Yeah. And even today, 10 months later, if you go to Twitter and you search rose.com latest, you will see tons of people still talking about us. And then we got into all of these lists, A16Z talking about us, etc. So I think it's hard to engineer virality, but at the end was, what is the current exploding market that's happening? Do I have a valid hypothesis on why my product can latch onto this market? And then what's the kind of fastest way of distributing this? And we did a little bit of paid, and that was, I think, really helpful.
And do you think that's because, the advent of AI, along with your product that was already, really good, matching those two together and then just, distributing that through social media? Do you think, is there any particular things that you found, made that go viral? Is there anything particularly that worked in this instance?
The thing that worked really well, it wasn't even made by us, is one of the first influencers created a really strong hook for the post, and they said something like, "AI just killed Excel."
Right.
And we would not say this, right? So it didn't come from us. And now you see like Excel just killed PowerPoint, Excel just killed, or AI just killed PowerPoint.
Yeah.
I think we were one of the first inadvertently, and so this hook was really strong. So AI just killed Excel. People were curious. This was the first post, and then video, etc. So I think that hook was really strong. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. I mean, that's absolute gold, really, isn't it?
And it didn't even come from us, honestly.
Yeah. And was it YouTube influencers you were working with, or across different social platforms?
What we found with YouTube, honestly, is doing short ad segments doesn't really work very well for us, at least they're very easy to skip. It's hard to convey the value of the product. What we did do is some tactical long form videos with some content influencers. For example, in the intersection of spreadsheets and Notion, we are very big on the Notion community. So we work with a few Notion content creators to work long form videos on how to use rows with Notion. That we've done, but not really ads on YouTube with content creators. That hasn't worked very well for us. So it was mostly social media, mostly Twitter, really, that had biggest virality potential. And then the following 2 or 3 quarters, we allocated a little bit of budget to keep pushing content with these same 2 or 3 people until we had a flywheel going kind of by itself. That's what we did to follow on that initial investment.
Fantastic. So not just actually the one campaign, but actually following on with a few extras with those influencers.
Yeah, because my internal goal was every week, someone relatively big should make a post about rows.
Yeah.
So how much budget do we need to keep this weekly momentum until it keeps on its own?
Yeah. And I guess, is there any tips that you could give people in terms of how to work with influencers? And are these, Twitter, people that have got big Twitter followings? How did you find the right people, and who did you decide to work with?
Finding the right people is a mix of being in the communities, just so we spend a lot of time on Twitter, so we can really intuitively know a little bit about this, and then just doing research, right? Who is on the topic that you're searching for, who has biggest audience, likes, the right type of engagement that are not bots. You do spend a bit of time on that. And the same thing for YouTube and these other channels. I think that was kind of it.
Fantastic. So third top marketing strategy for you is SEO, something that we've already talked a little bit about in this podcast episode. But to preface that, you've said that you specifically create things like templates, calculators, and tools. So I guess this is free things that people can access and use that gives Rose brand awareness. Yeah.
The way I like to think about it is in terms of content, you can place it in a matrix of audience and CTR, or conversion rate. Right? And saying there are different types of pieces of content with different places on this axis. And we try to build compelling content pieces across these axes. What do I mean? So for example, very large audience, very low conversion rate is our rose.com/calculators. So these are calculators, which are adjacent to a spreadsheet, that are like embeds of a spreadsheet that you can do aspect ratio calculator, Facebook engagement rate calculator, and each of them has a landing page, but of course has low conversion rate, because just because you're looking for an aspect ratio calculator doesn't mean that you want a new spreadsheet. And then on the other extreme would be templates. And templates are very few clicks per day per template, but then much higher conversion rate, because if you're looking for a Google Search Console query comparison report, you land on a template from us. This is really high intent, right? You're already looking for a template like that. And that's what we're pushing more and more, having a really high quality library of templates. And then you have things in between, like blog posts, if you're looking for Excel alternatives, Google Sheets alternatives, which are a little bit in the mix, right? They're not as high intent and not as high a conversion rate, but they keep people in different moments of their buying experience exposed to rows. So we're doing a little bit of these things across the board. And that's going to be one of the big things coming forward as well. And because we have instant rows, just to wrap this up, because we have instant rows, we will build the best spreadsheet template experience in the world. Because you can think of searching for Google Analytics 4 content group report. You click, you land on a template landing page, use template, no sign up required. You're already on the template.
Yeah.
You can experience value before even signing up. So that's a little bit of what we're going after this quarter, next quarter.
So will people actually find a page which is a bit of information about the specific template, and then they can click use, and then they'd be straight into the template, into the tool? Yeah,
exactly. If you go now to rose.com/templates, you can already see this. It's a real landing page, has a little demo of what it looks like, FAQ, so a lot of content that help you educate about the template.
And how are you finding which templates to create? Is it user-based, people who are using it and asking for these templates, or is it search query-based, or a mixture of the two?
Yeah. It's a mixture of the two. We're doing a lot of keyword research on. We have more than 50 native integrations, and so we're looking for what type of keywords are people looking for these integrations plus reports, or these integrations plus dashboards that we can rank for. And then we're taking cues from our existing customers on what type of reports they build and see, does this make sense to build as a template page as well? So it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, makes sense. And when people can get straight into the tool, it's a lovely user experience too. A quick question about the calculators and tools. How are you actually going ahead and promoting those once you create those, or are they purely based on search volume?
Purely based on search. We haven't done any promotion besides a link in the footer, really. Yeah. And we started, I think, with 50 calculators. We're actually going to push a new version called tools, which are different things that are not calculators. So going into this high impressions, low conversion rate. Yeah,
that's it. Yeah. And is there anything that's worked best out of the tools, calculators, things that you've created like that that's just far exceeded what you expected it to do?
In general, what we're finding is they actually rank much faster than we thought they would. And the ones that work best are the ones that are in the intersection between our ideal customer profile and the calculator. So things like Snapchat engagement rate calculator, Facebook engagement rate calculator, because they're a direct bridge into connecting Facebook into rows. So those are the ones that we see that are working quite well. I'm more bullish even on the templates, like building a really robust template gallery, like Canva-like strategy. But I think we will play along in all of these across these axes to get brand awareness across the board. Yeah,
it's interesting you mentioned Canva there. It's something that pops to my mind when you're talking about like an extremely large content template library. It's obviously what's helped them grow, because people search for things like invites or what have you. They jump straight into Canva.
Exactly.
It's a very similar sort of user experience where people can dive straight in a similar way that they can with rows.
Yeah. And you can think of about two types of templates. If you're building a GA4 template, for example, a Google Analytics 4 content group template, maybe we only have one of those. But if we're building P&L templates, we can have 50 P&L templates, because if it's for a pet shop or for an SMB or for an agency, or and so there's different ways of going about it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And is there any other tips, anything that you've not mentioned in this area that you might be able to provide to the listeners?
Well, these things that we're doing, I think the first step is, where are the growth loops that make more sense for the company? And for us, we have two types of growth loops. It's either internal virality. So person A signs up, creates a spreadsheet, invites person B, and this goes on and on. Or external virality. Person A signs up, builds a spreadsheet, shares with their clients, shares with their suppliers, or shares on social media. And so a lot of our thinking comes from there. Like, how can we get the first person to create the spreadsheet to propel the rest of virality? And so a lot of it is getting data into the spreadsheet. And so that explains a lot of these things that we're doing. It explains the RoseX Chrome extension. It explains the templates. It explains the integrations. So that's how I would think first is, what do we think is the growth loop that can compound over time? And how can we ingest more people in the first step of the loop?
Yeah.
That at least dictates a lot of the things that we're thinking about.
Yeah. Reminds me a little bit of the Amazon quote where it's, nobody's going to want slower shipping in the future. It's kind of sort of what you're doing here. Nobody's going to want to make it harder to get their, data in. Everyone's always going to want to make it easier to get data in. So if you can get data in, if you can, have a ready-made way to present that data with templates and things, I think that's obviously going to help people dive in and use the tool much, much quicker.
Yeah. Now we see that in most reporting CRM tools, export to CSV is one of the most popular features. And so this tells us that people, if they have an easier way of getting data in, they will want to have data into their spreadsheet. And so
absolutely. Well, I'll have to bring this to a wrap up. This is with our last three questions, so quick fire questions that I'd love to ask you. So first of all, what's your best piece of marketing advice?
Build something people want in an exploding market. I think this is the fastest way of getting big and getting valuable. Yeah. It's hard. We're on it for 6 years, but I think that's what I would say.
It's hard, yeah. You make it sound easy. Second of all, can you recommend a book to our listeners?
My favorite books, I think, can help me on my day-to-day are the ones about history of early web companies. That's really what I love to read about, one of the things that I love to read about. So two that I recommend quickly is How the Internet Happened, from the Netscape to the iPhone. It explains a bit the internet in its first 10 years. And the second one is Valley of the Genius, the Uncensored History of Silicon Valley. Those I really like, and a lot of the ideas that we get come from reading these older
they sound
books.
Very cool. I've not actually seen either of those, but I'll find them and I'll link them in the show notes as well, so the listeners can find links to those. Finally, last question is, what software tool could you not live without, Rose aside?
Screen.studio. It's this software that allows us to record videos of the product with automatically zoom in, zoom out, automatically giving us a frame of the videos. If you go to our LinkedIn or our Twitter page, we share a lot of short snippets of use cases, all of them using Screen.studio. So it really accelerated how much content we can put out about the product.
Fantastic. I've actually used that myself as well, and I can attest to it being a good tool. Yeah.
And it's an indie developer, I think, in Poland or something that has done a brilliant job solving a real problem for marketers. So, kudos to him.
Yeah. Well, Henrique, I appreciate you being on the podcast today. And everybody who's listening, please check out rose.com. You'll be straight into the tool because they've got instant Rose, as we've talked about. Thank you again.
Exactly. Thank you, Matt.